Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and it is time for part 4 of the Q&A, so let's get to it. Is it safe to be pushing yourself as in the weight only comes an inch off the floor for 1 rep when your back can't handle the weight and you drop it on deadlifts without a belt? Really depends. Generally, failing on a deadlift, particularly high rep deadlifts, is what leads to an injury. You don't see people get hurt very often on a deadlift doing low reps. It's generally when people are going over 5 reps that their form degrades and you see failure or something else cause an injury. It's very rare to see powerlifters get injured on a deadlift, and when they do, it is usually a bicep rupture, not their back. So taking a deadlift to fatigue is potentially dangerous. Now, as far as it being a back injury, it depends on if your form breaks down. If you've maintained correct spinal alignment and you just hit muscle failure, it's probably okay, but the deadlift is one of those lifts that if you're hitting failure on with any degree of regularity, then it's going to burn you out very, very quickly. The deadlift is not a lift you want to reach muscle failure on, because your peripheral nervous system and other things are going to get too fatigued. It's going to massively impede your ability to recover and perform later in the week on other lifts, completely unrelated due to your nervous system. So you really should be avoiding hitting failure on the deadlift if possible. It shouldn't be something you do very often, and it shouldn't be intentional. All right, next question. What is your take on the 80-10-10 and all the claims the likes of Durianrider makes? I don't believe in macronutrient ratios and percentages at all. There's no point whatsoever in knowing what your percentages are. There's no benefit, there's no reason to know it. Now, that being said, if that's where your numbers happen to end up, for some endurance athletes, the 80-10-10 might be okay if they're not also concerned with building or maintaining large amounts of muscle mass. Now, you look at someone like Durianrider. He's a relatively small guy. He's fairly lean, doesn't really have any muscle mass, any appreciable amount, but he is very exceptional at endurance events, which means his caloric intake is going to be very, very high. I've heard people say Durianrider is hitting like 4,000 or 5,000 calories a day sometimes. All right, you take 5,000 calories, and 10% of that would actually be 500 calories of fat and 500 calories of protein. Well, that's going to put him, for his body weight, within the recommended amounts. And for someone who's burning a lot less calories, who weighs more, they're going to need more fat and protein as a higher percentage. That's why the percentages don't matter. And because he is involved in large amounts of physical activity, he needs a massively high carbohydrate intake. Even me, it's not uncommon for me right now, even though I'm recomping, to eat 700, sometimes 800 grams of carbs in a day, because that's what my body needs. That's what I burn through due to my training. So it's not unreasonable for him, but I would say for non-endurance athletes who are carrying more body weight, have more muscle mass in him, you're going to want more protein in your diet than that's going to be, and you're probably going to want more fat if you're not using anabolic steroids. So it's really subjective to what the individual is doing, but for what Durianrider is specifically doing, for his goals, for his body weight, for his energy expenditure, an 80-10-10 might be perfectly acceptable, and it might be close to ideal for what he's doing. So you have to look at it from that perspective, but there's no reason for you to actually know your percentages. It's pointless. You need to be focused on minimum numbers, caloric intake, and trying to squeeze in a lot of carbs if you're athletic, because carbs are your training fuel. All right, next question. What would you recommend someone do if they continuously stall on your program? If you're on my novice program and you continually stall, I don't know what you mean by continuously stall, because everybody will stall eventually, and you're going to stall often. That's why the resets are there on individual lifts. You just keep pushing, because you are going to reach a point to where you're going to get to where you go to squat 275 pounds for a 5x5, and you might stall 2 different times on the ramp up, but eventually you get to 280. Eventually you'll get to 285. The thing is, you keep pushing with it. And if your numbers are getting so high that you're stalling for months on end and not able to increase, you've probably outgrown the progression of the program. You might want to go to an intermediate. If you're stalling for months on end at anything less than, say, 315 for the squats and 405 for the deadlifts, then you're probably simply not eating enough calories, or you are not getting enough sleep. There's something else going on that's preventing you from properly recovering, adapting, and growing. So if you're following the program correctly and you've stalled and none of your lifts have gone up for 3 months and you're doing the resets correctly as I prescribe them, then there's probably something else wrong with your lifestyle that's causing it. All right, guys, so that's the end of part 4. So I will talk to you next time, but let me give you guys a bicep shot first.